security apparatus, and nothing has happened. None of these people have been called for questions. It is only when Nigerians or when the women see that issues are being handled that they will not say, yes, we believe in this nation. If not, with what has happened, I have to tell you the truth. No Igbo man, especially the ones that goes out every day to fight for their daily bread, that will take this country seriously again. So the best thing at this point now is a public apology, especially to the Igbos. Let us put it that way, and let us say, well, it was done out of ignorance. It was never my intention. I never instructed anybody to do X, Y, Z. If not, my sister, my brother, Nigeria is sitting on a bed of gunpowder. We must all come together and tell ourselves the truth. Maybe use the National Orientation Agency to talk to people. You ask the question that why is it that Leah Mohammed has not said anything up till now about hate speech? These are people that were against hate speech and all the rest. So all these things that happen this way, they are not regarded as hate speech or what. We must be careful and tell ourselves the truth.
Yeah, someone has canvassed for a referendum. Do you share that view?
Yeah, on the question of referendum, I share the view of referendum in the sense that referendum affords us the democratic opportunity to determine whether we want to coexist as a country or otherwise. But the reality is that these elections is in itself a referendum on the continuous coexistence of Nigeria. And the question you ask me is that how does it also conduct a referendum? Don't forget that just less than a year ago, one of the biggest questions in this country was the question of Odua nation. Have you forgotten? There was a time there was a jingoism that Odua nation, Odua republic, and the Igboism and everything. Why has all those drum beats disappeared? They have only disappeared on the basis of the fact that this same ruling elite, very bankrupt ruling elite in this part of the world, whip up this jingoism for their own interest. And when they have now positioned themselves and capture power, they forget and bury those jingoism. Now, we now see them employing the Igbophobia narrative. We must not fall for it. We must not fall for it. Now, ultimately, it is only when we the 99% in this country, because according to the World Bank, yes, according to the World Bank, only about less than 1% of Nigerian population, which are the political elites, really take the fact of the commonwealth of this country. And don't forget, Nigeria is one of the biggest oil producing countries in the world. About $18 trillion petrodollars is coming out of this country. Now, according to Oxfam International, just 5 Nigerians can settle about 78% of poverty. This class bankrupt ruling elite is the real elite we need to displace in this country. Within a democratic and egalitarian scenario, we can now have a referendum in which we will determine whether we want to have an independent Victoria Island, the Republic of Victoria Island. Do you know that Catalonia, the Republic of Catalonia in Spain, is smaller than this entire Lekki city? And it's an independent republic. They have the right to self-determination. So ultimately, what we need to, the ruling elite we need to deal with is the 1% ruling elite. And we have encouragement from all over Africa. As we speak today, South Africa is in a big uprising. Kenya is also in a big uprising. The whole of Africa is on their feet. And Nigeria, as the second, as one of the biggest black nation, needs to also stand up on its feet, united against oppression and against segregation.
Thank you so much. We're about to round up, but before we say goodbye, Barrister Huebu, just yes or no, do you buy the idea of referendum?
Yeah, that's what we need at this point in time.
All right, thank you so much. Well, we've been taking a look at post-elections litigation and vital role of the judiciary as we move forward in this country. And I've had Barrister Justice Uhuegbu, human rights lawyer and former vice presidential candidate of the NAC party. He ran in 2019 as my guest. I also have Barrister Ayo Ademiluyi, a legal practitioner. Both of you gentlemen, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It is my pleasure.
It's a pleasure.
I am Maureen Menonwe Zigwe. Thanks for watching.
Increase the reach of your events or business services. To advertise on Plus TV Africa, please call 0906 000 5719 or 0909 040 8408, or send an email to marketing@plustvafrica.com. Plus TV Africa. Big stories live here.
Coronavirus, a word which became popular in our vocabulary in 2019, but scientists and medical experts tell us human coronaviruses were first identified in the mid-1960s, meaning it has existed for years, centuries even. The World Health Organization, WHO, on March 11, 2020, declared the novel coronavirus COVID-19 outbreak a global pandemic. The first known case was in China, and there were reports that the virus originated from wildlife sold at the Wuhan market. Over 6 million lives were lost to COVID all around the world. In Lagos, Nigeria, the Ministry of Health confirmed its first case of the novel coronavirus on the 28th of February 2020. The aftermath of the pandemic has changed the way we live, the way we do businesses, the way we work, and the way we relate with people. There has been a good and not so good side to this pandemic, but in all, it impacted the entire world.
I think for me, and I guess for many other people, it was the hugest shock of the decade, because suddenly what you call normalcy disappears. Even the regular attempt at just moving out of your house is fiercely restrained. First, there was we had to start learning what to fear and what not to. And then for many of us, it was house arrest, whether or not you liked it. It's not what we want to hastily remember. We just know, like somebody humorously stated, that it's one of those years I didn't use, so I cannot add it to my age.
How I felt, the prevailing emotion during the pandemic, I was scared. During the pandemic, I was scared. When it first started, I was scared. I was scared because of when I turned on the television, I see the number of people who are sick or dying. It was very scary, when it first started. The fact that I couldn't go out, I couldn't go to work as I would normally do, even though I would work remotely. I couldn't go to work, I couldn't go out, I couldn't go to places, I couldn't go to church, I couldn't do anything. It just made me feel trapped.
So I think I must confess that it was one of those most rewarding eras or times for me, because I am very, very introverted. And so I'm one of those who, if I chose to stay indoors for 90 days straight, I would throw mental parties. It didn't have the sort of popular impacts it did on others who were practically scared of their own shadows through that time.
COVID-19 was a global pandemic. Everybody was affected directly or indirectly. I'm not an exception. We were greatly affected, but thank God we didn't lose any life in the family. Everybody came out of it stronger and better. The COVID actually had its positive side, which I will look at as rediscovering who you are and giving the best of who you are to the society.
I'm a legal practitioner by practice. My profession is legal practice. So at that period of COVID-19, many courts were not sitting. In as much as the lockdown brought some good, it also bedeviled certain professions.
For like a month, there was a lockdown. So the economy was shut down. So it affected me. And I believe it affects everybody.
By the grace of God, I didn't run out of food. Even though I'm working, I work with federal government. So I didn't run out of. But notwithstanding, what about other relatives who are depending on us? We could not able to stretch out help towards them. So definitely, if it's not affecting me, it affects most of my relatives.
Then I was overseeing a school, an international school. Our salaries were not halved. We were just paid like the basic of. So it was a terrible time. It was a terrible time.
So we should give you people. That is why they ask people to start. Go.
Why comment?
Thank you.
Yeah, I certainly saw the impact of COVID around me economically. And I think it was the first time my wife and I had to sit to say, truly, there's an immense need to be grateful to God. And it was largely because we started getting calls from those who had to live from hand to mouth, whose income was strictly daily, and if they didn't do anything daily, then lunch was, threatened, dinner was, had to go on leave and the likes.
I remember this particular woman, very distinct. She stood out among the other people. She came in and she said that she has like 3 kids or 4 kids, so I can't actually remember the number, and they haven't eaten in days. I think
one of the things I learned, or a number of things I learned during COVID, I would just list them in no particular sequence, is that I think one of the first thing is to understand your fears. There was just a cloud of fear that queried logic, even when you knew to well that this doesn't make sense, but you just have to do it. I remember standing in the queue in the pharmacy, and this guy went paranoid. You're standing too close to my child. You're standing too close to my child. And I'm a medical personnel, and I was wondering, Oga, calm down. You don't even understand what this is. And you're already paranoid over 6 feet and the likes of those kind of instructions that we were given. All of us had to learn and relearn health habits. I just recently, I remember being amused because I attempted sneezing and I quickly reached for my elbow, and I said, how this hasn't disappeared, after almost 18 months, 20 months after that episode. So a good number of us had to learn some of the things that are very helpful today. We had to grow some degree of intimate familiarity with masks. A number of people who would never have used masks in their lives now, cling to them very fiercely.
I believe people would do what they are supposed to do when pushed, when pressed, even though it's the right thing. During COVID, usually you're supposed to cover your mouth, your nose when sneezing with your elbow. You're supposed to wash your hands regularly. It's something it's basic hygiene. But a lot of us didn't imbibe that. Now, post-COVID, whether or not establishments decide to maintain the culture of using a mask or continue to bring, put a wash bowl and detergent or, liquid soap for you to wash your hand or not. Your hygiene should be your priority. It just goes back to what I said earlier on, that that's what COVID has taught. Your health is very important, and hygiene is also something that you should take very seriously.
I think to expect a cure for a COVID would be to demand of nature too much. And I say that because it arrived and it met on the stage illnesses like HIV, malaria, and these, to the best of our knowledge, only have palliative options, not cure, not outright cure. So I think with every phase of humanity would come an epidemic like this that helps us reshape our perspectives.
Today on Breakfast, a new study has found that any type of hormonal contraceptive may increase the risk in developing breast cancer. Quite a chilling revelation. We'll speak with a health practitioner for insight on this.
Also on The Breakfast, we'll take a look at the recent international table tennis ranking and the Super Eagles AFCON qualifiers game today.
And of course, we have latest look at what the papers are saying in Off the Press. We'll take some of the big stories on the front pages of the newspapers, analyzing them with our guest who is joining us in a few minutes. All right, we're back. It's The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa, and of course, we've been enjoying a hot tea here while waiting for you to be with us. Once again, you're welcome. My name is Kofi Bartels, and we have a very interesting conversation ahead. Mercy, I'm looking forward to hearing more about the breast cancer thing, because these hormonal pills and stuff is what we hear women use a lot. You know, even the doctors would prescribe it to you sometimes. So I want to know more about it.
I feel like it's a conversation we can never, it can never be overemphasized. And so every time we talk about it is very relevant. But once again, thank you for joining us. I am Messi Bopo.
And my name is Kofi Bartels. We begin programming today with a look at the top trending stories. We just take 3 of them. And we'll start with a state that is close to my heart. If you follow this conversation, you know there are 3 states that are close to my heart. Cross River State, and Lagos State. I love those states so much. This one, I want us to just show this picture so that you can understand exactly what we're talking about. It is a letter, a notice, if we can show it now, a notice that was shared. It was posted on the wall of a facility. Yes, so I'm just going to read what this is saying so that we can just go straight. It's no need to waste time. So this is a quick notice of sorts, a quick notice it says Government of Rivers State of Nigeria, Office of the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Works, dated 20th March 2023, subject to whom it may concern. To whom it may concern. Proposed GRA Phase 5 Ozoba Port Harcourt demolition notice. It says, following the imminent commencement of the above project, all structures impacting the right-of-way of the project have been earmarked for demolition, including your own. Consequently, you are by this notice requested to remove such structures within 48 hours to allow for speedy progress of work, please. Signed, Ebere Dennis Emenike, Mrs. Permanent Secretary. Just to provide background, this is simply a quick notice, demolition notice actually. First quit, if you don't quit, you'll demolish, from the government of Rivers State, of course, led by His Excellency Governor Nyesom Wike, whom his people affectionately call Nyerishi, or as they pain them, it is sweeters. As it is sweeters, it is pain them. Okay, so this was served. This was served on the management of Dar Communications, owners of African Independent Television, AIT, and Ray Power FM. Okay, and this is for them to remove their structures from a piece of land which the government is referring to in 2 days, a failure of which the structures will be demolished. So we've read that. The land on which AIT and Raypa is built is said to be in Ozoba and has been the subject of dispute between the Rivers State government, the community, the Rivers, and the Dar Communication PLC. The state government recently claimed the property through a motion passed by the State House of Assembly. So that's that. We hear that meanwhile, the Rivers State chapter of the Nigerian Union of Journalists has pleaded with the state government to review its plan to pull down the AIT structure. There's a statement signed not just by the chairman of the NUJ, who was a guest at my wedding, Job Stanley, but also the secretary, Ike Wigodo, respectively, who appealed to the Rivers State government to review their position on the land dispute and drop their plan to demolish and take over the AIT property.
Well, so first, it's quite unfortunate that all of this is happening in Rivers State. Like you have rightly mentioned, it's a state that's close to your heart, and one would begin to think that, what exactly is going on, in Rivers State, what's going on, with the government, what's going on with Nyesom Wike. But it's important to note some people, because if you look at the response and reactions from Nigerians, it practically feels like, this is a vendetta. It feels like this is very, the government is taking it out on anyone. This is being extra with the powers that you have as a state and as a government. But it is also important to note that the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999, as amended, says that every citizen of Nigeria shall have a right to acquire and own immovable property anywhere in Nigeria. The Constitution gives right to every individual who is a citizen of Nigeria the right to own properties wherever it is. So you have a right to own as long as you're a citizen. Now, if you look at the crux of the conversation as to the quit notice for AIT, I'm not sure the AIT just erected that structure. The structure was erected in Rivers State. You have been there. I'm not sure that structure just happened in 2023 or 2022. So I'm sure that that structure has been there for a very long time. And so which gives, premise to the question of so if you say that there's an obstruction of right of way or right to way, there's some sort of obstruction. Now before, as much as the Constitution says that every Nigerian has a right to own a property wherever it is that they desire in any part of the country, then you ask yourself, at the state level, you also need to have the presence of governance and government. And so who is responsible? What government agency is responsible for ensuring that if a property is being bought, before you erect a structure, there's supposed to be some sort of approval. So all of a sudden that structure is illegal. It's structured. It is obstructing the right of way and movement of pedestrians or even vehicular movement and what have you. But the next question you ask yourself is who were the persons? Because I'm not sure that AIT as an entity or as an individual just woke up and then they acquired that property. I'm sure that there were procedures. The government gave access or gave a nod to, yes, you can build. There's supposed to be all of that. So these properties are not just, people don't just wake up and build structures. There's laid down rules. Government at each levels or wherever it is, you want to say even at the state and at the local government level, there's some sort of control. And so how come all of a sudden that's illegal? Who gave the heed? Because I'm not sure that AIT as an organization, or whether you want to look at it as an individual, would just wake up and then, hey, they decide to build in a certain space. There would have been procedures, laid down procedures that would have been followed, and someone gave the approval for that structure to be erected there. All of a sudden, the structure is now obstructing the right of way. It's not structured properly, and then you have to demolish. It just speaks to a lot of things that's been happening. It speaks to to the character or the disposition of our politicians, especially when you talk about Rivers State over time. It feels like there's been a lot of some sort of how do I even put it now? One who's been acting very dictatorial and acting somewhat outside of the premise of the law, and that's what it is. But those who are in the legal space have advised that it's important that they probably file for an injunction stopping the Rivers State governor. Don't forget, it's not Wike himself; it's the Rivers State governor, government. So Rivers State government asking for that demolition and what have you. And so whatever will be done, you can't attribute that to a person, but you also cannot take an individual from, the state as well. So however you look at it, it is what it is. But we hope that we get to a climb and we get to a society where all of this, is not a case, that people will not take their personal grievances and whatever it is out and use the powers within the purview, to act indiscriminately.
Mercy, you mentioned the fact that, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria gives everyone a right to, to own property everywhere and all that, which is absolutely true. But also, the reason why the state governors are able to do what they want to do. I remember, how many of you remember the Yinka Ayefele case? I think the governor who demolished the radio station, the building of that radio station belonging to Yinka Ayefele, what's his name again? Is that Jimobi? Something, I think he's no longer alive, but if I'm not mistaken. But that Yinka Ayefele case is one in point. For those who are in western part of Nigeria, they remember that the government said that they were expanding the road and they needed to clear some buildings and all that. So we're used to hearing in Nigeria, in different parts of the world even, but in this country, that when government wants to embark on a project, maybe road expansion, they want to dualize the road, for instance, they are able to say, we're going to break your fence, break part of a building, we'll pay you compensation. And so people are not able to say no. They actually will just have to go for that compensation. And that's where they can engage in some litigation or negotiation on how much they would receive. The Land Use Act is what has given the governors in the states the right to administer land. That's why most times we're looking at, you have a piece of land, you want a CFO, you have to wait for the governor himself to sign. In some states, it's actually a campaign promise that if you vote for me as governor, when I come in, all pending CFOs will be signed. I know some states where some churches who have a big piece of land, a big portion of land, and the governor was refusing to give them a CFO. When they were campaigning, I think it was Nyesom Wike was campaigning in 2015, 2014. He promised some of the churches that he was going to sign, just approve their CFO. And they prayed for him and supported him and all that. So I'll direct us to Section 28 of the Land Use Act. That's Part 5. Part 5 of the Land Use Act talks about revocation of rights of occupancy and compensation thereof, or therefore. So Section 28 of the Land Use Act, subsection 1 says, it shall, and I quote, it shall be lawful for the governor to revoke a right of occupancy for overriding public interest. Overriding public interest. And that's a simple, law that these governors would always use to do what they have to do. If governors are always powerful, they tell you, it's a federal government. It's a lie. They're able to do a lot. We're not seeing governors in states in this country declaring people wanted, just to wake up one day and say, I'm declaring you wanted. Anyway, so there are conditions to this overriding public interest. But Section 1, subsection 1 of Section 20 of the Land Use Act, it clearly states, and I quote, it shall be lawful for the governor to revoke a right of occupancy for overriding public interest. And we've ever seen the case in point where people buildings that hosted political meetings, the governor came out, Nyesom Wike came out and said, see, if your building is not meant for a commercial purpose, you can't host any rally and all that there. If you host it, we'll have to act. And part of the action some people would expect to be revocation of CFO. There was this politician, I think it was Lee Meba, who had a house, a piece of land somewhere in a very plush part of Port Harcourt called Ojiari. That should be like the, maybe Ikoyi of Port Harcourt. And it was revoked, if I'm not mistaken. So, that's where we ended. Conditions to this, we don't want to go into all of that. So, the governor has a right to revoke a CFO in overriding public interest. Now, if you look at the letter or the quid notice that they issued, they're saying that all the structure is impacting the right of way of the project called GRA Phase 5 Uzoba. Now, I know GRA Phase 5 Uzoba, because I used to play football on that land. It's an expanse of land, and where I used to work was just part of that place as well. That has not been touched. You look at development right from the Uniport axis. If you're entering Port Harcourt from Warri, or from Lagos, you could pass through Bayelsa. You'd be coming in through the Uniport axis. Now, development has taken place from all those places. When I moved to Port Harcourt, that place was bush, but that's when you get to a place called Obirikwere Flyover, that part of Port Harcourt, you see a bushy part that has not been developed till now. That is where you call GRA Phase 5. They said there were plans. The history of that land is longer. We can't go into it today. It goes all the way to the end of the Civil War. When Olusegun Obasanjo, some people told me, historians in that area told me, went into a chopper and flew and then said, we are taking this place for University of Port Harcourt, all this land from here to here, military now. So the community, they've been, all the communities on that stretch of land, it's long, you have many communities that have been, angling for some land. And then the Rivers State government, of course, which came up after the Civil War, took over, and then it was a military time from DTSP, the military and all that, till the civilians came back in 1999. So they had that land. Now, the communities were still angling. They wanted that land. The land is a big deal in Port Harcourt. It's a big deal. They wanted that land, and they went to court. Okay, so they have some judgments and all that. But the thing about it is the government of Rivers State that inherited civilian government, now they inherited the land from the military, who, let's say annexed it or, apportioned it for public use, was able to give out these lands to media houses. You have a number of media houses who are there. Media house I used to work for had land there. I know the AIT land, it's quite big. If you go into an NTA compound, I've not seen any NTA in this country that is small. It's like that. Even the NTA was allocated to, very big, by government. So you have a number of media houses there. There's one popular television station, the popular one, the private one. They just opened their studio not far. I don't know if that is part of this arrangement, but what I'm saying is the state government had this magnanimity, to welcome media houses and all that. But what we hear is that at some point, the State House of Assembly, if you remember, in 2022, said they wanted to probe the history of that AIT land, and also the community, the Ozoba community, which is a very hospitable community, very nice community. They had some very nice land which they were able to sell, and some of it is still there. Fantastic place. I used to live there, by the way. They had to look into the complaints of the community, that they had a court ruling saying that whole land was for them. Now, what some of us expected was that the undeveloped parts of the land, which is quite enormous, a lot of it, will be developed as part of that GRA Phase 5. Even the football field I used to play on, they brought bulldozers to clear the place. But the thing about it is, the Rivers State House of Assembly did a probe, into the acquisition of that land. And when they concluded their probe, they said that Dark Communications, it's 868 plots. Mercy, imagine that, quite a large land. The Dark Communications had wrongfully acquired that land. Okay, and there was a recommendations by the House of Assembly Committee on Public Petitions, okay, which sat over the petition that the community brought. So we have communities, namely Rumokwashi, Rumosi, which is where I used to work and play football, Ozoba, which is where I used to live, Alakahia. These communities came together to petition the House of Assembly. So what the chairman of the House of Committee said was that Evans BP, during his presentation, of the report of committee, now this is last year, September, he said that Dark Communications failed to provide land documents for the said property, and after they had 2 meetings, and after the 2 meetings and they adjourned for a long time, they requested the management of Dark Communications, to enable them provide land allocation papers and all that. He said they failed to provide those land allocations, so that was what they ruled. But you see, what the government is doing now may not be connected to that committee, because now they are not talking about lack of documents. They are talking about right of way. We want to build GRA Phase 2, Phase 5, and your building is standing in our way, so we're going to move it. Now, the question about is this politically or not politically related? Because we all know that Raymond Dokpesi has been a strong member of the People's Democratic Party, at least from the time of Goodluck Jonathan. We all know that the PDP National and Nyesom Wike, the governor of the state, they've not really been in good terms. We know that Raymond Dokpesi has also been part of the Atiku presidential campaign bid, So some people suspect that this is not unconnected with that. Now, how do you expect? It's a large expanse of land, Mercy. You have a radio station there, you have a television station there, and other facilities. Now, how does also move the building in 2 days?
No, so Kofi, just as we coasted down, you have actually said a lot, giving history as to all that has happened. But it's also important to note, as much as you say that the laws, it's within the purview of the governor or any governor, to revoke any property based on the Land Act use. But you also need to understand, yes, even if you have the Constitution saying everyone has a right to owning the property, I'm just saying that it's not possible for you to wake up here and say you want to take a property without, the government being involved. For instance, in Lagos State, there's something very popular. I'm sure that it should be, national. It should be a national phrase. It's called the building permit, which is essentially regulatory approvals given by government through its relevant agency. So the question that we begin to ask, as much as you say, hey, is right to way, and you can't even talk about the obstruction of right to way. Everyone, especially pedestrians, they have a right to way, and so that is not it. But I'm saying that it wouldn't have been possible for Dark Communications or Raymond Dokpesi, to wake up and acquire property without the approval of the government. It wouldn't have been. So who gave the approval to that? Did that not consider, all of the concerns of the community? At the end of the day, let's even look at it rationally. I'm not sure that you can wake up anywhere, whoever you are, in this country, to wake up and say you want to acquire property without due diligence, without even saying you want to erect a structure anywhere. So that's also another thing to look at. Is it that they just woke up and got to the point and then got a property? Did this government not know that all of these were issues and concern? So how come this is becoming an issue? Why did they, in the first place? Whether or not it's long-term or short-term, you're supposed to have your, environmental impact assessment over time carried out. So it's just a lot to grapple with, but we can't really dwell so much on that.
Just to add that the suspicion, Mercy, that the create notices for the entire building. It's like someone saying, here, plus we should move this in 2 days. It's not possible. The House of Assembly had in its recommendations, and the House of Assembly they're not the law, they're not a court that can just determine what should be done. It's just recommendation. They recommended that part of the land should be retained with AIT. The rest of the land is quite large. Okay, they now recommended that the remaining section should be given back to the community. So we have about 10.7 plots out of how many plots or hectares they say should be given to. So I do not know if this quit notice or demolition notice has to do with maybe the fence, okay, that they want to break, and not the entire building, which is all we'll have to see in the coming days.
But we just move away from that. There's also another interesting conversation that's gotten the interest of a lot of Nigerians. It's about the the approval of designation or redesignation of State House Assembly Clinic or State House Clinic to Medical Center. President Muhammadu Buhari has authorized the renaming of State House Clinic back to a medical center. Tijani Umar, who is the permanent secretary, State House, made the disclosure after the secretary to the government of the Federation. Is he under suspension? I thought there was some sort of suspension. The SGP.
The party in Adamawa State APC have set a committee to look into disciplinary committee, and they're saying that the ward executives don't have the power to suspend Boss Mustafa.
Okay, but let's move away from that. It's a different conversation. Like I rightly mentioned, Tijani Umar, who's the permanent secretary, State House, made this known after the meeting with Boss Mustafa, who is the secretary to the government of the Federation, conducted a pre-commissioning inspection of the new presidential wing of the State Medical or State House Medical Center. However, it's also important to note that in March 2019, the President, Muhammadu Buhari, had approved that the State House Medical Center, Sokoro, which was facing challenges with funding, deterioration of infrastructure and equipment, scale up or scale down to a clinic until the challenges were addressed. And now with improvement in the problem and in the areas, the new VIP wing with the state-of-the-art facilities, it can no longer operate as a clinic. It is now to operate as a State House Medical Center. I don't know if anyone would contend that if you look at the issues, can it operate as a clinic? Or now let's also forget that there's also a big issue as to not even having a syringe at a time where Aisha Buhari had raised that concern, and one would think, what clinic should not have, especially the one that is located in Aso Rock?
Yes, indeed. The medical center, clinic, I don't know if, Nigerians care about it, because I think these are things that sometimes I'll tell people not to bother about, because you know, you don't want to give yourself too much unnecessary pressure and too much, maybe increase your blood pressure, stress of thinking about the issues in this country. If you want to go into the budgets to see how much have been or how much has been budgeted or allocated to State House Health Center or Clinic over the years. I'm not just talking about since Buhari came. It's just funny, you know. They're having issues. They are not sure. Should we maybe KK Clinic? Okay, we don't have enough. Let's downgrade it. They can't even put their own health facility in order. Can't even sustain it. You know, they can't even have a proper, run it, and then without all these issues, you don't have to. So, you know, just laugh about it, people. The question is, whether it's been upgraded to a health center or not, will it change the fact that Muhammadu Buhari, you know, has in 2020, but as at the end of 2022, as of December 2022, spent 237 days on medical trips since his inauguration in 2015. Okay, will he change that fact that he goes abroad, you know, to have his medical attention? I don't think it will change that fact. I don't think so. And then we have another one that is warming up, you know, which is the president-elect. He's already taken a rest, gone to Paris. From Paris, he's going to London, you know, take a rest. And of course, I'm sure that may involve, or I believe that may involve some medical attention. Just, you know, rest is still part of medicine, is it not? You know, and then some asking, can't you rest in Nigeria? You have to go to Paris and then London to rest. So I don't know. Clinic Health Center, will it change the fact that our health facilities are not good enough to take care of our president and senior officials? Will it be good enough for the president? When the vice president had his leg issue, it was in a private hospital that he went to, some private hospital somewhere in Abuja or Lagos, I can't remember where. It wasn't a government house clinic, you know. So what will it change is the question people will want to ask. I don't think much. We have to go, but just a quick one, very quick one, to inform us that Ike Ekweremadu, the former Deputy Senate President, of course, and his wife have been found guilty of organ trafficking, and that story is well covered. Messi, what do you think about this before we go?
Well, it's not rocket science. It's just a reflection of a society whose values are very intact, not an extremely like a plus saying that they have no flaws in the entire society, but it is what it is. I've seen how Nigerians have reacted. Some people say, can the United Kingdom cut them a slack? Any parent will go a long way to do anything to save their daughter. You don't want to be in a situation where you would do anything. But the next question you want to ask yourself is, are there procedures? Are there laid down procedures, to get the same result? But maybe we're already in a climb where we're used to getting it quick, cutting corners, looking for shortcuts, however it is. And if you look at the judgment, I read through all of that. They were convicted for conspiracy to exploit a man of his kidney, according to the first verdict, and they're looking at the issue of modern day slavery acts. They have that already. Now, you want to talk about the laws and implementing the laws and the judiciary interpreting it. I also read some of the comments. It was really, really, looking at some of the details that were said. They said the issue of hypocrisy, pretense, entitlement, all of that. We don't have so much time, to get into the crux of this issue because we need to move, to the paper review at this point in time. But just simple and short, it's just a society that has structures that are functioning and the law take its course despite whoever it is that you are. The word is exploiting the poor. You're exploiting the poor. If you look at it, exploitation of a poor person. Wow. And laws would be there. We have fantastic laws in Nigeria, but what's the level of implementation? And if you also look at the judiciary, would we have a different outcome if this case were to be in Nigeria? I have seen comments, but for how long will we continue to make excuses for wrong behavior? it's just different, and it just speaks, entirely to a different polity and a climate, and that's what it is. The law is the law. There's no sentiment about it. You can't, say further. But Kofi, we need to go. I know that it's something that we can talk about. I'm sure we will talk about it on the paper review, Kofi.
Yes, we'll take a break here. When we come back, we'll quickly dive into the paper review segment. Please stay with us.
There's certain laws or certain policies that he cannot, or certain procedures, governance procedures, that he cannot just execute without passing through other tiers of government. So every tier of government is important. We have to try as much as possible as we are trying to vote in a credible candidate for the president.
Or what are the things he said he's going to do? Whether it's APC, PDP, Labour, it doesn't matter. Who is the person?
They are the one in power. If there's anybody sabotaging, then arrest them. They have all mercenaries of the state in their care. Use them. Let us know what has really caused this scarcity.
Put in the right. I was in Kenya and I saw how things were working, right? And a friend was telling me that there had never been any reason for me to go and say I'm queuing to purchase fuel, and he's been there for 5 years.
Hey, what's up, guys? You're welcome to another edition of Plus Event, and I remain your host, Ifeoluwa Oshukeye.
Your absence isn't an excuse anymore, as Plus Events is all you need, as we bring you the glitz, the glamour, and loads of fun.
Oh, definitely. Right, no question. He's a living legend.
Oh, God forbid, Holy Ghost fire, I know.
I just want to be blown away. I want to be wild. This is 11 years of doing it.
I'm surrounded by so much positivity.
No, it's okay.
Yo, what's up, my people? It's your boy Starboy Terry. You're watching
Plus Event on Plus TV.
Stay glued to Plus TV Africa every Saturday and Sunday, 4:30 p.m. West African time.
In raising our kids, parents should stop playing God.
The internet is actually using the people.
But when you are looking for money to help other people, then it becomes easy.
Don't rush into marriage. I always say this. You rush in, you rush out.
Family is the bedrock of every society and the essence of life.
On Today with John and Helen, we dig deep into family values in every sense of the word.
Join us every Saturday at 9:15 a.m. on Plus TV Africa, DSTV channel 408.
With you, we play a part in strengthening the values passed from generation to generation.
And we're moving to the papers this morning with Jide Johnson, who joins us on a beautiful Friday. Jide, it's good to have you join us this morning.
And good morning, Kofi. I hope last week both of you were not harassed
from doing your duty, from not being a Lagosian or a Yoruba person?
Well, that wasn't the case, but we couldn't say it was different for our colleagues who were out. I mean, it was quite threatening when we got the reports. But it's still good to know that everyone is up and alive and we're here. And that's one thing that we're grateful for. So, but let
me just use the refrain they use, go to court.
Well, I think yesterday Festus Keyamo had to explain that. What else should he say? Should he say we should fight? So anyway, you're welcome, Jerry Johnson.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a quick look at the Leadership newspaper this morning. It says, in 20 years, Peter Obi alters shape of Southeast politics. And that's as Labour Party records first win in Abia governorship elections. PDP slim win in Enugu and takes party closer to extinction. These are the writers you have underneath the bold caption of the Leadership. Now, and away from that, there's also another one that says Sultan declares today first day of Ramadan. Sultan declares today first day of Ramadan, the festivity. And banks to get more old Naira notes from the Central Bank of Nigeria today. It was yesterday, they said it was yesterday. Now we're saying today. So it feels like every day is going to be today. And then you find President-elect Tinubu off to Paris, Saudi Arabia for vacation. That's quite interesting. I mean, some of us don't have the privilege of going for a destination vacation. But, the president-elect probably might just be enjoying himself. Abba Kyari loses bid to stop trial for drug offense. And then you find global banking turmoil. Nigerian banks need vigilance and proactiveness, according to a report, GAR policy. That's the much we can take this morning on the Leadership.
All right, and let's go over to the next paper there. Of course, talking about the Punch newspaper with the following headlines. Old notes circulation, CBN begins monitoring today. Banks set 2-week target. There are quite some writers which I'll skip for now. We can look at that as we go on. Ramadan, Tinubu, Atiku, others, or governors pray for peace, unity. Judy, I want your take on that. 203 electoral offenders face trial in 20 states. Police, I don't know if there's a particular name that is part of those people. FG fixes May for airport concession, Nigeria Air. Organ trafficking, Ekwemadu wife risks 10-year jail term in UK. Fayose Otom tackle PDP over suspension. Tight security as appeal court decides Adeleke Oyetola suit today. LP SDP reject Enugu Ogun governorship poll results. I bet they'll be heading to the courts.
Well, we also have the Nation newspaper this morning. PDP hit by post-poll crisis, and that's boldly written. Wike tackles party over suspension of Fayose, Ayim, and Shima. And then Otom ex-Ekiti governor rejects action. It is contemptuous. That's what you find right there. Minister insists Nigeria Air will fly before May 29. And then tight security as Court of Appeal decides Adeleke's fate. Then again, insurance assets increases to 2.3 trillion naira. Yellow cards for owners of Lagos, 349 buildings. I'm quite not sure what that is. United Kingdom increases its interest rate to 4.25%. That's a lot, just as ours have increased to, 18.0%, if you like to say, or 18%. CBN begins allocation of more cash to banks. Okay, so we hope that, the issue of cash crunch and scarcity will be over by the weekend. That's the much we can take on the Nation now.
All right, let's go straight to Jiri Johnson for his analysis. Jiri, one that I would like to start with is on the front page of the Punch newspaper. Quite interesting. Ramadan, Tinubu, Atiku, governors pray for peace, unity. It's amusing to me.
When election comes around and they've achieved their result, our political class become religious. I've said it, Nigeria is a highly religious society, but we are not faithful. It's in Nigeria that you see people will go to church on Monday morning rather than go to work. We flout every known principle, even established by this religion, then we expect miracle to happen for our society. As far as I'm concerned, all of this political class, they perpetrated, they unleashed their terror on Nigerians during the elections across board. After unleashing their terror on Nigerians, now they are now trying to seek redemption through Ramadan. I don't even know what type of conscience they do have. And God is just a patient God. And that's why some of us have advocated that we should use African traditional gods in swearing in people into public offices, and should be the fulcrum of what we use as the basis of our faith. Because it seems as the God of the Bible and the God of the Quran are a bit alien to our culture, and they are a bit too slow to react to some of our needs in our culture. Because if you use Ailala or Osanobua or Ogun to swear an oath when you are elected into public office that you are not going to steal money, I can assure you that they will live true to type. But they know what it is. They know we are highly religious people. They know the easiest way for them to assuage our feelings is for them to play the religious card. And when they play it to their advantage, fantastic. But when others are using it against them, they begin to accuse the other of playing the religious or the ethnic card. Unfortunately, it's not possible for us to take away religion out of our national life. I think there are some certain things actually for us to develop and for us to grow is to take away the issue of religion and to take away the issue of ethnicity and state of origin, rather than settle for citizenship. That citizenship is the basis of what determines your existence as Nigerian, not indigenship of local government or not origin of a state, and then not about the religion which you practice. The state has no business in religion, and that's why even the religious leaders are feeding fat. It's a fact. The religious leaders are feeding fat across board, from Lagos to Sokoto, Sokoto to Kaduna, Kaduna to Kano, Kano to Enugu, and the rest of it. You see that the religious leaders are part and parcel of the establishment. I'll say it with my chest out that they are part and parcel of our problem in this country, because rather than hold this political class accountable, they also become part and parcel of reinforcing their hold on reins of power. So, as well as I'm concerned, I take it with a pinch of salt when someone that is not faithful is trying to be religious. He's just playing to the galleries. And ostrich burying his head in the sand and all of his body are out there. How religious, how faithful are these people?
Very interesting.
Well, Jide Johnson, let's quickly look at the Punch now. And it talks about the availability of the Naira as the Apex Bank will be chunking in the notes to the commercial banks. But are you not worried that up until this moment, despite the fact that there's been a comment from the Central Bank of Nigeria to the ruling of the Supreme Court, we still have the notes not available, whether the old or the new note also still in scarcity?
We have said it over time, Mercy, that there are institutions of the state in Nigeria that are bigger than the core institution established by the Constitution. There are three major organs of government: the legislature, the judiciary, and the executive. Now, when you have infractions, lack of respect for the third organ of government, which is meant to interpret the law and maintain order and sanity in the society, by a subset of one of the organs, a subset of the executive, then you know there's serious problem. NNPC operate as a body on its own. INEC operate as a body on its own. Central Bank to operate as a body on its own. So they operate as an autonomous body within the Nigerian space. So they are above the law. They cannot be put to question, because you begin to wonder, what is the Attorney General doing with respect to ensuring that there is compliance with the judgment of the Supreme Court with respect to the Naira design policy? In democracy, it's government for the people, by the people, and for the people. We said the judiciary is the last hope of the common man. And unfortunately, They are the ones that set up this agenda and this public view of the judiciary, because one, the institution of the state don't have respect for the judiciary. As a result of that, people lose confidence in the judiciary. So when people begin to doubt the credibility of the judiciary, they should not be blaming the political class. I watched a minister, I don't even know what type of nation we practice, where a minister will be appearing and be speaking on daily basis on the part of a political party, as if you are still running as the chief spokesperson. Such thing will not happen in a civilized climate. If he wants to be a spokesperson, he will not be the junior minister for labor and productivity. He would rather resign and face his job as a minister of labor and productivity and be the official spokesperson. He's wearing double garment. He's a minister of the Federal Republic and he's taking a partisan view. In a normal climate, the judiciary will have dealt with that particular issue, or the Attorney General will have written a letter to the president to that effect that this cannot happen. But hey, what do we have? Say what, anything can happen. That's the system which you have in Nigeria. So when people doubt the judiciary, don't blame the people. When the political class that have issues with the electoral process raise issues concerning the credibility of the judiciary, these are the things that give clue to it, because there is a decision by the Apex Court to the Apex Bank. This is the way you should go about this. Yet the Apex Bank is not complaining. You know, I queued for almost 2 hours to collect just 10,000 on the ATM on Wednesday when I got to Enugu. They were even paying new notes. Last week when I went to the bank, I was paid 3,000 from my money. 3,000. I filled the withdrawal slip and I was paid. What I'm entitled to is 3,000. It was not even last week. It was Monday. This Monday, 3,000 from my money, 3,000, and I was even giving old note, my money that I had rights to. I don't know if we have the likes of Nigerians should seek damages from CBN. Nigerians should seek based on the Supreme Court judge. Sometimes I have a regret that I didn't study law, because there's some class action that you could take on behalf of the citizen and sue the government, and then you get judgment for it. We should sue the government, both the federal government and the central bank governor, and the central bank governor as a person, for damages, for injustice against the Nigerian people. You know how many people that have lost their lives, as a result of not having access to cash, because some people will not collect transfer, and some that have tried to make transfer. What has been our experiences with making transfer? Some have made transfer, and the transfer is, you are not crediting those you want to credit. They can't even see the credit. The money has left your account, is hanging somewhere between the intermediaries, between your bank and the person you want to credit. So it's unfortunate. It's very, 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 very unfortunate. And they do it with the voter face. They do it as if there's nothing you can do. Every one of them thinks that they are above the law. They are untouchable. Look at their disposition, the disposition of people occupying offices, the disposition of the MD of NNPC, for example, the disposition of the INEC chairman, the disposition of central bank governor, and you look at the disposition of the ministers of federal republic or heads of security agencies. Rather than be serving the people, they have turned us to be their servers. And I said it that we are not practicing democracy. What we are practicing is feudalism. One, the governors have control over who have access to the land. They can decide that today you are no longer wanted on this land. Move your premises off this land. So you have the rulership of the lords on the serfs. So the feudal lords have control over state resources. They have control over the security. They have control over everything. So they determine the day you come out. They determine the days you don't go out. They determine whether you can own property or you cannot own property. They determine whether you can vote or you cannot vote. So they determine your citizenship. So what we have is feudalism and not democracy.
It's quite unfortunate. Stark picture you've painted there. Jerry Johnson, even though we've been having a laugh at your plight, but the fact is it's actually a sad commentary, because you know that people have even had to collapse, die, give birth at ATM points and all that. and it's really a sad one. 203 electoral offenders face trial in 20 states. Police. Now, if I read that, I think like Messi was chuckling at one story. It's making me chuckle. But I wonder if there's a name of one dramatist personnel or the dramatist personnel in Lagos State in what we saw happen here, play out on the 18th of March. But are you confident that this police probe will really go after those who really matter?
You see, someone cannot have the effrontery to commit thuggery or to commit election infractions except that they are arrested. And then we have seen cases of, I want to see whether they will prosecute INEC officials who, in one way or the other, compromise the integrity of their offices. Because we have had cases of result being suspended, we have had cases of result sheet being doctored, being manipulated, we have had cases of such, and then we have had cases of even PVC recovered, thousands of PVC recovered, buried. Not a single person has been found complicit in INEC or prosecuted. You see, when we want to clean the electoral system, it has to start with the body that is given the responsibility. If the body that is given responsibility and is given much resources is not living to expectation, I believe that the audit should start from there. I believe that the prosecution should start from there. I've said it over and over time again. Anyone that causes an infraction in the democratic process is committing treason and felony offense because it's trying to truncate the legitimate means through which you can acquire power in a democratic society. All of these people that you see that have been arrested, you won't see any of the political class. Who are their sponsor? Who are those that have sent them out? If they are interrogated, I think, you see, until you make example of people that are beneficiary of a corrupt political system, this corruption will continue. We thought that, the violence we witnessed in 2023 election is incomparable to the violence we witnessed in 2019. We thought to a large extent that violence surrounding our election will be reduced, but unfortunately, we saw the desperation on the part of the political class, and we see we see complicit behavior on the part of those that were even given responsibility to ensure that the election is credible, to ensure that the election is free, the election is fair, and every Nigerian is given the opportunity to decide who governs them. So when you see police have arrested, what are the identity of those that they have arrested? Who are they? Who are their sponsors? All this we need to know. When are they taking them to court? Because if you do your investigation thoroughly, you get to the root of the matter.
But there's we have to go, Jide. Thank you so much. One of them includes a gentleman who was being beaten. I'm sure that story in Lagos. He was being beaten by some persons, and he ran into the Oba's palace to seek protection. And then the thugs, and he was handed over to the police who arrested him. Anyway, Jide, thank you very much for your time. I do enjoy your stay in Enugu, and like I said, do find time to eat some original Enugu Okpa. It'll do you good, and let's just enjoy yourself. We hope to have you next week.
Thank you very much. Messi, thank you.
Thank you.
Kofi, have a wonderful.
All right. I don't know if the police have also seized his network.
Well, the network is not favorable for GD at this point in time, but we hope to connect with him next week. That's the size of it for Off the Press. We take a break. When we return, we'll be looking at new statistics and, the fact that breast cancer can also be a thing with this recent report. We'll be speaking with a professional. Please stay with us. Good morning.
what we see and envy in other countries, we don't pay enough attention to how it is done. So, for example, people are always talking about, oh, we should tell African stories. I smile.
I'm one of those who says that.
I think that we should talk to ourselves first before we're even worried about what people are thinking about us. We overvalue the opinion of other people. We don't value ourselves. We don't value our people.
But isn't that why we should tell our own story?
To ourselves.
Yes, first.
Do you understand?
Yes.
So we won't be talking about telling African story because we didn't wake up this morning and think first and foremost I'm African. I think I'm Nigerian.
That's what I'm
You
saying.
understand? So in Nigeria,
Yes.
first and foremost, we need to talk to ourselves. How do we talk to ourselves? What do we say to ourselves?
What's
Every
our
day.
reality?
So what does reality mean?
Reality.
And what lens are we looking at reality from?
Welcome back. It's still The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. Now to our first conversation this morning. New research published earlier this week, in the United Kingdom's Guardian confirmed that all types of hormonal contraceptives carry a small increased risk of breast cancer. Yes, you heard it right, breast cancer. The research establishing a link with progestogen pills for the first time was published in the PLOS Medicine publication. Data analysis by the University of Oxford researchers established that the use of progestogen is associated with a 20 to 30% higher risk of breast cancer. Now, this builds on previous work showing that the use of the combined contraceptive pill, which contains estrogen and progestogen, is associated with a small increase in the risk of developing breast cancer that declines after its stoppage. Joining us to provide some insight into this is Dr. Nnesochi, who is a New York City area-based physician, health expert, media contributor, health writer. She's not only a practicing internist and civil surgeon designated by the United States Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, but she's also a medical advisor. Dr. Nnesochi is the CEO of the internal medicine private practice, Dr. Nnesochi LLC, and health media consulting company, Supermodel MD